You can be like any. You can be like a doctor. You go to Harbor Freight. You spend like $100. You're like a roofer. Be like a welder. You know. So like whatever you want to be, you can be it for like $100. Not like a good one, but not for a long time. You can be it for like a week. You be, the stuff breaks a lot.
$100 in Harbor Freight, you man.
You could be a bad whatever.
Mechanic or whatever, huh?
Bad mechanic, bad painter, all kinds of stuff.
About the same as Big Lots, 1,350 sites for Harbor Freight.
Well, there's nothing north of Canada. Oh wait, isn't there nothing north of Canada? Not a whole lot up there. I think got stores up there. Huh? Mooses and grizzly bears.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Yep.
Public.
O'Reilly. Yep.
Auto parts.
So for McDonald's, are those franchise company stores, both?
Both.
Wow.
Michael's got 1,135 sites, saving them $841,000 a month.
You said you do overseas too?
What's that?
You do outside of the U.S.?
Yes, sir.
Oh, Gap too. Yeah.
If you see these up here, a bunch of these are Canadian sites. LA Fitness in Canada. If we go back to Michael's, there's Michael's in Canada also. Puerto Rico, Brazil. Is it Brazil or Colombia? I'm trying to think who's down there. Yeah, they're not showing anything in South America at all.
How about off the coast, Bermuda, Bahamas?
I'll take Bermuda. I'll do that one.
I think the only few places that we did have was in Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, yeah.
All right.
They're not even showing up on here.
I don't remember what client that was.
Shoe Carnival or DSW?
Something like that. Sounds right.
Look at all this. Which one's there?
Those beans? They're what?
Showing us all the different places they got.
Uh-huh.
That's what you're asking at? Like
Yeah.
LA Fitness has 96
You Espresso and water.
sites in Florida.
Yeah, that many.
See, this is what I was trying to build. Trying to figure it out. But I couldn't even figure out how to get that information port to another table. Mirror, you know, like I said, I was playing with it. Oh. Well, these might have been hand-built. It is possible. Oh, built their own database. Built tables to populate from the database. That makes a lot of sense.
While we're going through the commission document.
The hard part is building your own database. But it's tedious.
Some more slides. Good thing to reference here.
Is that no more slides?
No more part slides. Now we have.
No more
commissioner button.
PowerPoint slides.
This is,
Oh.
Is it?
Oh.
You sure this isn't?
Actually, both are in there.
Yeah, it's about.
There's a printable version on that flash drive also.
Keep it around your binder, carry it around. This here is a 9362. Actually, that's a 9386. That's an even older one. Controller. Those rarely will be seen. If that is there, it's already failing. It's getting upgraded. So I mean, it's going to go to a UBC at that point. Some of the 9362s, which is down below, we can't
Shrink
really
that
see.
just a little bit, buddy.
There we go. Oh, it doesn't say. So we got 9386,
58.
and then 5825. So actually, now that I think about it, I don't think I've ever seen a 5825 in the field. I don't think anymore. I mean, I see a lot of the, it's not even this one, it's usually, it's a 9362. Yeah, it's usually 62. A lot of these have already been changed out and upgraded.
Alright.
There's the 9362, the UBC, down below, the new one. We can see the harness for powering it. So this is the Phoenix connector. When doing the controller upgrades and stuff and putting that dongle into those pins and then that ground, I always like to do it actually. I'll line it all up, my distance that I need, and then I'll actually put that in there before I put that Phoenix connector in the actual UBC. Because the Phoenix connector pops off and then it has two screws. It has two screws that tighten down on each side that holds it in place. But it's a lot easier than trying to get up under this thing mounted flush and try to push those little locking things, whatever they're called. Because you got to push them in and then put the wire in and then release it. So the micro pads, these are the discontinued one, but there is still some out there. It just goes through showing the different parts of it. So you got where the internet connects into it, that's usually on the top in the center. We have the micro SD card. I don't think we shouldn't really have to be messing with that micro SD card. Unless they're gonna do an upgrade, but it's a discontinued, so I doubt they're gonna do any type of software update on it. If they wanna update, they'll just go to a UBC, set up an SLP. The reset button. So I mean the battery backup, when I was doing before with one of our clients, I went around and did a bunch of network cutovers. They had a bunch of cell modems and they wanted to get off the cell modem, they wanted to go to their own network. So when I would do the network, I'd have to reset this, and sometimes if that battery jumper, the backup battery jumper was not on there, when I reset it, I believe the next slide actually shows it. When I reset it, it would go back to it's like December 31st, 1969 would be like my date, would be on the unit. It would show RTUs dated to that date, everything was dated to that date, which is incorrect. So basically what happens is it loses all, there's no battery backup, so it loses all its date, time, all the above. So it's actually a contact the TOC, have them run a hard date script, they'll push it to it, it'll reset the date and time, and then it'll also, they can confirm connectivity, but you shouldn't really have to be doing that. Most of these now, like we're saying, it's gonna be pulling that thing out, marking, labeling the wires, and pulling them up to an SLP panel up above the ceiling. So here's the internal, shows all the internals, like the diagram of actually the SLP and the power interface down below. So it doesn't give an actual detail wiring in between, which I think the next one does.
Yeah, this just shows.
This is just showing the basic setup and the serial
interior layout.
connection. So on the
Yeah,
UBCs, that serial's cut off.
Quick question, on that previous slide, you said if that gets pretty much erased, like a CMOS battery, they have to push an update to it to fix the date and time?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
just a date and time. It's called an R date script.
And what if they can't get connected? What if they can't get out?
You have a cell modem, you're gonna
Plug a
connect that
cell
cell
modem
modem
up.
to it, and then they can get to it.
Okay.
That's if the client network, when I was doing the cutovers, is when I ran into this a lot. So I didn't even know anything about this R date script and stuff whenever I first went to the first site. And then when I seen the time came back up, I'm like, I have connectivity, but the time's wrong. So then I had to call TOC and have them run the program script to correct it.
So the purpose of this section is to point out specific things that are a constant problem. So you know what to look for if you get on site. Now, if that jumper's not on there, it's gonna mess with you.
It never loses power to it.
That's just the layout of it.
Yeah, that's kind of just the layout showing all the different. This is the dongle connection. So it'll be clear on the copy y'all have of it, but the power of the dongle, you can see the power just comes in, like we were saying, just plugs in, so it's all plugged together adapter. The dongle has that serial connection on it. It gets cut off, stripped back, and then goes into the pins. I don't know I can't off the top of my head remember exactly which pin it is. I just know if
It
I
says
go.
so right on there.
I can't
Make it large enough. You can make it larger.
Well, I was gonna say how I just read it from left to right. I'm back on the inside, 6 and 7.
You got it.
Deselect.
What?
Deselect.
Deselect.
Okay, now you can make that larger if you want. There you go. Put it on down so you can see it. I think it's,
There we go. It's gonna
it's
be
37 and 39. 37 is positive, 39 is negative. That's what you want to do on your comm loop. When you cut that serial cable off, strip those back, and you're going to pop it into.
And the UBC actually tells you on the face of it the pins. So it starts with 1, 2. So you flip over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, count all the way up. Me, I'm sure y'all you like a little bit faster stuff. So I know the Phoenix connector when it's in there. The first one on the inside is going to be the ground, and then I just count over 5, and that's our black and then white. That's how I run it. That's just a little bit faster for me in the field. But also, you gotta always test connectivity and make sure it works. So, because if you're one pin off, it's not gonna communicate.
Yeah, just make sure I get your number before.
Yeah, you'll have our numbers. So that's what these are. This is doing an upgrade from an old 9386 screen. That's why it looks. And then the next one shows you putting the UVC in there to replace it.
And our override buttons.
Yeah, that's an old panel.
So this is showing the old, how it's all powered, how everything connects. I don't know if y'all remember in there when I was talking about removing that UPS, the big black plug-in thing, it had that little power box to the left side kind of tucked away. This is showing basically the diagram of where the serial connections, all the Phoenix connectors, how they plug in, where they wire to. I mean, a lot of that shouldn't have to reference this ever, just because we're going straight to the UVC side, but just in case there ever is that one time they're like, hey, we don't want to upgrade it, we just want to replace this power pack. You know, that power system in there. They do that still anymore?
Nope.
Okay, never mind. They don't do that anymore. All right, we'll delete that page. No, I'm just kidding. It's a good reference page to look at if you kind of want to also see the old style compared to the new, how it's changed and upgraded.
The big thing we want you to get out of this section is knowing that the information is there for you to reference. You know, it's in there. You can pull it up, you can plug it in your computer, you could look up, how do I change this? And the directions are there. But to actually go through and read every part of this, it's not necessary. You read it if you need it, right? We want to show you that it's on there, that it's all good stuff.
Well,
for you
it's
to
kind of
look
like
at.
when you're taking your contractors, your state exams and stuff. It's not about learning all the material in the books. It's knowing how to navigate the books, which are tabs, and
Right.
it's knowing where the information is.
Besides, if we bore you much more, you're gonna fall asleep.
Yeah. So this was the thing I was talking about on this one that I intentionally broke a little plastic piece off of. I got this out of the trash, so just in case it goes wrong. It actually did come out of the trash. But, so that's just one thing to look for with that card is just reach back there. It's, don't force it if it doesn't want to go. I mean, there's probably a reason it's not aligned. I mean, just kind of using sense with that one.
What's on the card? What's on that card? Like, is it like for like firmware upgrades or something?
Yes.
Okay.
So it has all of that card there. So basically, say this is a controller at a site. Say we have 10 RTUs, we have all kinds of different sensors there. Right when this card is removed, it's all stored on this card. So this card gets removed, and you get a new card. Okay, it's a brand new blank card. You plug that blank card in, you'll still be able to read, like communicate with the RTUs. You'll still see them popping up, but it's going to say RTU1, RTU2. There's going to be no programming.
Okay.
So all of the programming and everything is stored on this card.
Is there backups to that, or is it that's it?
Yes, they have backup files. Every site that is done, that is programmed, they have a backup file for that site that's stored separately. So they can always access that same file. So like if you're doing a software upgrade like on the UVC, while you're there, you take the existing, you power off the UVC, you just unplug it, you take out that SD card, put in the new SD card that was sent there with the newer software, put it in, contact TOC, and they'll actually push the whole file, the same file that was originally pushed to that site.
So all the names and
So
everything.
it'll
is
all
in.
go back. So the same information was on that card that you removed will be on there. And every now and then, you'll actually have some that when they send for like a controller upgrade, and they're upgrading to UVC, the card they send, the SD card they send, already has that file. Already has everything programmed on it.
Nice.
So then you just plug it all up and it's all working.
All right.
Yeah, but these are step-by-steps how to do this. I mean, that's all it really is. Where's it at? How do you get the card in? How do you get it out? Step by step, just how to do it. You know, and same with this.
Well, you wouldn't believe, I'm sure our TOC, you could probably attest to this, is how many times has anybody had to walk like a manager through trying to get one of these cards out, put in, and it'd take, what, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? I don't know.
Oh, that's a good one. Found somebody Johnny on the spot, 20 minutes.
So that's kind of a good thing. You can take that page and kind of send it like direct. It's like, hey, here it is. So the UVC, see, here's the holes that I was talking about. I'll just do the green one on the back and then I count over, but it tells you 1, 2, 3, 4, or you can start from this side and go 40, 39, 38, 37, 36. So you can count down that way also for knowing where to connect that. There's the SD card. Like it is, it's a push to release, it's spring loaded in there, it locks in place. Always want the part that says SD in the writing to be facing you with the angle upwards.
And it can't go upside down.
It'll stop And there was one guy that he found a way to get it in it.
Okay.
I don't know how he did it,
There's no
but
well, there's a way. Just drive it home, you know?
I don't know if he took the UBC apart or if he just took it off and started banging it until it fell out. I don't know what happened, but I know he got it out and it worked after. So this is the I/O board. They're calling this the replacement install guide. All right.
This is a step-by-step how to replace a bad I/O board, okay? That's all it is. And if you see in red down below down here, it shows you for this site where all the jumpers are supposed to be set. In red, kind of, it's right there in front of your face. Change the jumpers, because you'll start testing and you go, well, that ain't right. Then you, jumper's wrong. So that's about the name of that tune. These are all directions on how to are on that flash drive for you.
And it also gives you the address, like we were talking about the I/O. You can see over here it says the 40, the address it to 40. So yeah, this is more or less something just a reference. I'm not going to read through it all. Oh, there's a blown up. So here's your jumper positions I was talking about for your different sensors over in the bottom right.
And read it off.
So you have position 1 is for your resistive sensors, typically thermistor, or your light sensors, dry contacts. So I'm not really sure what light sensor goes to that. You ever had a light sensor
OST.
for that? Oh yeah, the OST. What am I thinking? I was thinking of IL sensors, your interior lights. So your 4 to 20, well that's the top. Jumper 1's your top 2 pins. Your 4 to 20 is actually going to be your bottom 2 pins. So that actually is saying it's a current output. So, and then our input for our 0 to 5 volt, which is like our relative humidity sensor, it's a jumper completely removed. So it shows removed, but how we actually do it is we'll take it completely off, but we'll put it on the furthest top pin. So the jumper's still there, it's just nothing's jumped. So it just stays there for future use in case somebody wants to change it, they can move that jumper if a different sensor gets wired to it.
The offset's really got a big difference to them.
Yeah, the offsets that's strictly a programming thing. But you can use that though, because in Portal, cross-reference that in Portal, because Portal you can click on the sensor and it'll tell you in the top right, when you click on it, like when you showed you all the sensors tab and it had the outside air, the foot candles. So you can click on that and it'll give you, on the top right, it'll give you like the I/O and the offset. So if you're trying, that's what's programmed. So if it's not reading correctly and you look at that offset on Portal, you can match it up with this previous slide on here and see what input that sensor is supposed to be wired to. So, because sometimes you'll show up on a service call and you might have 3 different things going on there, 3 different issues, and you're like, this sensor's not reading accurate, where does it even land at?
In the beginning, you just give us a call and we'll tell you where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, or that.
It takes a while to get used to all that stuff. It just takes some practice and getting used to it. This is a cable schedule. This is one of the most important things is there is no substitution for our 24 single pair. It has to meet those standards. Windy City Wire is one of our providers. We use all stranded, twisted, shielded, plenum rated wire. Can you make it bigger? Oh, you've got this on here. And it's on all the drawings, all of the drawings. But yeah, so, whether it's Tappan, Belden, we really don't care who the manufacturer is as long as it meets those standards. But that 24 single pair, if you don't want to have common issues, use 24 single pair. It's low impedance, comm wire's about the impedance. It's not resistance, it's not, and a lot of electricians always think bigger is better, right? But it's not with a comm wire.
Because that's big resistance.
What's that?
Bigger the wire, the bigger the resistance.
Well, the more circuits you have, the less resistance you have. So when you use bigger wire, that's why when you're doing long runs, they oversize the wire so much, so they don't have as much loss.
Right.
That's why when they transmit it millions of volts,
Yeah.
because there's less loss that way.
That's
Then you got your
because
step down
electricity runs
voltage.
on the outside of the wire.
Yep, And that's why if you use stranded wire, you got a lot more
A lot more
surface.
surface area.
Well, back to the COM one, I actually went to a site to go commission it after the contractor installed it. And right when I walked in and opened up a DZC, there was an 18.2 wire in there for the COM wire. So needless to say, they thought they were leaving and they had to re-pull all of the COM communication wire. So between each one.
The only thing we accept for a common loop, there are no exceptions to it. It's gotta be 24 single pair. Because it may be working good that day, and it may work good next week, but it will degrade, and slowly but surely you watch it start failing, and failing more, and failing more, so it's.
And Cat 5 is also not a substitute. I've seen that.
Yeah.
Or old sites where it's like.
Well,
yeah.
we need to quit saying Cat 5, because you almost can't find it anymore. It's Cat 6, right?
Oh, it's Cat 6.
Cat 6 wire, that's the new wire that's out there.
Correct.
People are saying, I can't find Cat 5. That's all right, you can use Cat 6.
It'll pass.
Yeah.
Just this one time.
So, these are the tools that we need for you to have. These are the most important thing for you to have out there. Those are it. Remember I told you there was a few tools that you need for commissioning? The R8 sensor, that also, it's a laser pointer temp sensor for checking your supply temps against what the portal says it is. And then for any verification with CTs and stuff, that's a real nice fluke setup, works great. You need control screwdrivers, and you don't even need the keyboard anymore because you can't hook it up to a UBC anyways.
Yeah, that was for the old.
Yeah, you used to be able
That's
to.
what I use for
to
those
mic-
micropads.
Well, you could use it for a micropad, you could use it for 9386s too, 9362. So, but that's pretty much it for those. We don't need this anymore. You know, of course, Cat 5 crimpers,
Yeah.
real handy, and cat and mouse for network cable, real
Very
handy
important
stuff.
tool.
How come you don't need the screen anymore?
What's that?
You said you don't need the monitor screen anymore?
Well, so this screen here, we used to be able to plug it into our old screens. And you could plug a keyboard in, and you could change things on site by plugging that stuff in. Our new UBC controller doesn't have the ability for it. We don't have the RGA plug-in anymore for a monitor, and we don't have
USB.
a USB to plug a keyboard in, so it's just not something that we need anymore. It used to be pretty good troubleshooting stuff if you had problems, that you could see exactly what the screen was seeing and reporting through the cloud back to us. So it's just not necessary anymore. You can't use it.
Yeah, and it's only used on the old controllers. And it had to be like an older software too.
We're at a point now that everything, if you go out and there's a controller issue, it's gonna get a new UBC. We're not supporting any of the old hardware. I mean, this is already 5 years old, so most of that stuff came out in like 2005, 2010. So we're hitting end of life. This shows you how to, again, it's just how to replace an EMS sensor or a lighting relay or a lighting contactor. It tells you how to do it exactly. I mean, you do wire for wire, you really can't go wrong with it. But it is in there. Your reference binder is exactly for that. You pull that stick up, throw it in the computer, and refresh your memory, because you're not going to remember all this anyways. That's why you want to be able to pull it up and have a look. It's the same with wiring, you know, exactly how you wire an EMS sense, exactly how you wire. So we don't want anybody getting hurt. If you follow those directions, you're not going to get hurt. We don't work on live wires with not even 24 volts. Turn it off, wire it up, and then, you know, protect yourself, stand back and test it. Because it's like he was saying, one strand in the wrong place that you can't see because it's underneath something can cause you a lot of problems, and you don't want no one getting hurt. Our flex is pretty serious stuff. Yeah.
And always, another thing you mentioned, the arc flash. I just noticed recently on fitness I was at. So the electrician mounted all our panels, everything was mounted and stuff. They brought all their high voltage or 120 to an electrician, that's not high voltage, but running into it, and then one of the lighting control panels, they actually had the 120 in the ground backwards. So right when that breaker was gonna get turned on, that was gonna be 120 feet straight into the ground. So it's always still good to even look, even though that falls under their scope, it's still making sure our panel is okay and stuff, it's wired correctly. And usually it's a quick look, you'll see the blue or the black, and then you'll see the neutral in the ground. So it's little things like that, because they make mistakes too. And I mean, I don't want to flip that breaker on. I mean, it should just trip it and flash, but you know, I never know.
And again, this is step-by-step directions how to replace a DZC. Okay, so if you read through them, if you got sent out somewhere and you had to install one, pull it up and have a look.
Let's see, on this one, it's updated to 6. Yeah, so that one does go through your addressing.
See, now this shows that jumper we were talking about down here, wire jumper right there. Everything else is the same. How to wire a CO2 sensor in up here. Pretty simple stuff. So that's this shows you all the addressing, exactly how to turn on the dip switches. If you were confused, it'll tell you exactly how to address it.
And you can see where it says on 6, it's for if you got a separate temperature sensor. That's on the DZC in space. The new RTU, the DZC RTs, they're already preset to have a zone temp sensor wired to them. So dip switch 6 does not need to be selected or turned on for that. 6 is part of the addressing of the unit, not to switch back and forth between a remote.
This shows you all the different modes, and the interesting thing is we can control heat pumps and everything, whether it's reverse cooling, reverse heating, whatever the case may be on the heat pumps. There's dip switch settings, so we can control the heat pumps with the same equipment. But again, if you know it's a heat pump and you hook it up and you put one on and you tell it to cool and it heats, you know it's the other one. And this is just how to set everything. Again, it's a reference. You have it, you all have one, it's a good deal for you. So, whenever we have new equipment or any releases and any changes, we're gonna send you out these product bulletins and tell you what we changed on them, so that you're not surprised. So, we have 2 or 3, 4 of these a year when they make enhancements to our hardware, and we just want to make sure everyone's aware and they have these notifications. So we'll have one of the project coordinators get them out to everybody. In this case, we would probably get them to you and then make sure you could disseminate them out to everyone else. And these are just examples of the bulletins that go out and what we were changing.
So this is just your dip switch settings. This actually shows you how to set them on there for like the heat pumps. Like he was saying, you tell it to cool and it starts heating when you know it's reversing. So then you're gonna go up to your dip switches and you're gonna turn it. You're gonna flip it. I think it's B goes on for that actually. Turns on, but you look through here, it tells you the different modes. You got a heat pump, multi-stage with this, or multi-stage, single stage, standard multi-stage. Everything, you see everything stays off, the first 2, and then the last one's on because it's a multi-stage. So it's a good thing just to reference back. So this is in the Linux, okay, the Linux Prodigy board for setting it.
Now, that's the old one that had the ecto
Yeah, I was
setting.
gonna say, I haven't had to go through this one. That's your nomenclature.
Yeah, if you go through it, this tells you what each letter of the model number is and what it stands for, right? So every Linux unit 036 or above can be a single compressor dual speed, which makes it a multi-stage. So, before those came out, you know, they were like, one compressor? It's single stage, right? Except for these are multi-stage compressors, 2-speed. So even though there's one compressor, it's still a multi-stage unit.
And that shows it there. On the commission document, it's gonna ask you. And then when you have it there, it's gonna ask, saying that it's a single stage, but if you verify that it could be a multi-stage, but it's a single compressor, and then you have to click, I have confirmed.
You'll see that when we get started. And then that was my boss, Robert Martin, my buddy Zach, and my phone number's still the same on there, right at the bottom right there. Everyone else is calling. Let's go how to go in and do the different settings. I don't know how many of you do the HVAC equipment, but this is how to set up all the different things that, like, you go to control, you go to wired thermostat, because these units, when they come from the factory, these Lennox Prodigies, they're set up to stand alone, and they run by themselves, all right? So you gotta go in, you gotta go to settings, you gotta go to controls, and then you have to go to wired thermostat. And then you have to back out of it and and this shows you how to do it, exactly how to do it. And then your DCC is actually controlling it, because otherwise it's controlling itself.
You'll see it on there, it'll say network and wired thermostat. The wired thermostat, of course, is what we want.
So this is how to set them up. And the only one person we do this for is Michael's right now. But you have to go into configure ID1 and make sure that this is changed from L to G right here. G is for global economizing. So we do global economizing when the conditions are right outside, so we have free cooling. And we show you how to wire that in. It ties into a micro I/O and a DCCRT, and we use one of our relays up there. And then with you free cooling, if it's dry, cool air outside, because we know we have an outdoor thermostat, we have outdoor RH sensor, and if it's conditions are right, we free cool the envelope, so we save them energy in the morning, not having to run as hard.
That makes sense. That's what the duct sensors are for.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it.
Yeah, and then like you say, the outside temperature, we know what the outside is, so we can tell it to do it. Tell it to open up some dampers. But it's just showing how the duct temp sensor and our zone temps will actually just a rear view. It's all the duct temp sensor, how it wires in. I mean, on the inside of the in-space DZCs, it says DTS on it and ground. So I mean, it's pretty straightforward, especially once you learn the acronyms for it. Then at that point, it's like, okay. And I think the next one shows the zone, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, see, so it shows the zone. It's ETS, DTS, wires right into it. And the bottom one's actually, that's the older style versions of the DZCs. So the analog one, and you'll see the analog 2. Most of the time with that, the only thing that needs to be referenced for is when you're replacing that. Because you might take one of those off and put in the new one, and you're like, well, what was tied into analog 1? Because it's not labeled, it doesn't say ZTS on those, the older ones. But this is where you reference it and you go, okay, that's the zone. Analog 1's the zone, so let me go ahead and write ZTS on that wire, and then remove it to blow the wire to the new one.
Same with John over current. This is how you wire up, you know, he's telling you. So these go to the RTU, these go to the DCC, and it's one for one. I mean, R is always power, you know, G is fan, C is, you know, your common, blah, blah, blah. Yellow, blue, white, brown. Orange if we're doing 3-stage. But it's all here for you.
I thought a lot of the new ones, the 3-stage, where it does that, it's actually sending 24 volts on W1 and W2. Creates a 3rd stage, I think, on new ones.
Yeah, I think it is too.
I think on your newer units.
Aldi has these Aeon CES units, and we talked directly to them. We bought the programming from Aeon CES so that we could actually control these units via VACnet, and we're going to do that now. tying this into the slave side. The left side's the master, RS-45. The right side is the slave. That's the side we've got to be tied into. This is on an eye controller on a CES unit. And then on the commissioning document, you see right here, on the commissioning document, you mark that it's CES. Because they don't respond as quickly, and we don't want somebody, when you're doing a live checkout, holding you up going, hey, you don't have something right, this isn't right. But it is right. It doesn't respond as quickly as conventional thermostat interface is the difference. This is setting it up inside if you need to do the Modbus and everything on the inside of it. But again, if you have issues, I would tell you, if you call me, I'd say, put your flash drive in and look this up in your reference binder. And it's going to give you step-by-step directions how to do this. So, like I said, we don't need to put you completely asleep today, but this is the most boring part of it. Is going through this setup stuff, going through the how-to. Pool Pack was a product that was used mostly by LA Fitness for their pool area. In the beginning, that unit, they would take some of the heat created from heating or the cooling created from heating, or it would take the heat created from cooling, and they would actually condition the water with that. And so they had the pool water being pumped through that unit as a way to make it a little more economical to run it. All right, guys, let's get up and have a break. We're gonna let this be the end of it, because really the whole point of this segment is just to show you that all this information is documented and it's available to you. Okay, that's all we need to do. And then we're gonna get started here, going over the commissioning document, what we need to do to get it filled out, and how we collect that information. The commissioning portion is next, but this is how to install all of the equipment is in here. Step by step.
That even runs you through IP?
What's that?
That even runs you through a network over.
I don't have the information.
You guys ever gonna go to a wireless sensor system?
We tried it in the past, I'm not aware of.
Yeah, it hasn't been very successful. Nomar had a pretty bad run with it. There's a lot of interference out there. The wireless stuff, the light that's using wireless stuff, we're using Bluetooth, aux sensors.
I did some Chipotle's where, they had a sensor in the freezer and where they have the salad and it goes to a base station, but the restaurant's pretty small, so.
Yeah.
It's a big place.
Yeah, we had a bunch of wireless stacks and stuff with our McDonald's stuff. And it wasn't totally reliable.
That's what happened.
The good thing about that, when you run a wire, you got a bunch of-
Yes, it's 100%.
Right. We just want it. Might want to get a coffee.
No more coffee.
You want more coffee?
I'll take you to get coffee.
Adrenaline?
Coffee, really, like kicking really.
I better get some coffee.
Jumping jacks. Sometimes stretching is